I still remembered the smell of the clinic that morning. It was sharp and clean, like fear hiding behind soap. I had gone in feeling tired, but hopeful. I believed answers would help me rest. Instead, I walked out with a weight on my chest. They told me the results were bad. Very bad. They spoke softly, like they were breaking glass. I nodded because that was what people did when they heard words they did not understand. My ears rang. My hands shook. On the way home, the street looked different. Colors felt dull. Sounds felt far away. I kept hearing one line again and again. There is little time. I told myself they were experts. They wore coats. They used charts and screens. Why would they lie? That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and counted my breaths. I planned my goodbye words in my head. I wondered what I did wrong in life to deserve this ending. Still, something felt off. A small voice whispered that the story was not complete. I pushed it away. Fear was louder. The days after were slow and heavy. Everyone treated me like glass. They spoke kindly, but their eyes were full of pity. I hated that look more than the pain. I returned to the clinic for follow-ups. Each visit felt rushed. Questions were answered halfway. When I asked for details, they said it was too complex for me to worry about. I trusted them because I was scared not to. One afternoon, I noticed a paper on the desk before they snatched it away. I only saw numbers, but they looked calm, not deadly. I asked what it was. They smiled and said it was nothing important. That word stayed with me. Nothing. At home, I searched online. I compared what I was told with what I read. Some things did not match. The timelines felt wrong. The symptoms did not line up. I wanted to believe I was just confused. Fear can twist thoughts. Still, the voice returned, a little louder now. I started writing things down. Dates, words, faces. I did not know it yet, but this was a beginning. I decided to ask for my records. It sounded simple enough. I practiced the words before going in. My hands were cold, but my voice stayed steady. They told me the files were unavailable. I asked when they would be ready. They avoided my eyes and gave no clear answer. That scared me more than the diagnosis. Later that day, I met someone who worked there but did not wear a coat. We spoke by chance near the back hallway. I mentioned my results. Their face changed. Just for a second. They said nothing was wrong with me. Then they froze, like they had said too much. They laughed it off and walked away. My heart pounded. Two stories could not both be true. That night, I cried. Not from fear, but from anger. I had trusted them with my life. If they lied, I needed to know why. I promised myself something then. I would not stay quiet. I would find the truth, no matter how small the steps were. The voice inside me was no longer whispering. I started watching closely. I listened more than I spoke. Patterns began to show. Appointments were moved. Papers were missing. Answers changed depending on who I spoke to. I asked for a second test. They said it was unnecessary. I insisted. Their smiles faded. When the new test came back, they did not show me the full page, only a summary. I asked again for the numbers. They refused. That night, I felt stronger than before. If I was truly sick, why did I feel better? Why was my strength returning instead of fading? I remembered the calm numbers I saw that first day. I made copies of everything I could get. I took notes after each visit. I learned words I never thought I would need to know. Fear was still there, but it no longer ruled me. I realized something important. Lies need silence to survive. I was done being silent. The truth did not arrive loudly. It came slowly, like light through a crack. A lab report appeared in my mailbox by mistake. It was complete. Every number, every note. My hands shook as I read it. The results were normal. Not perfect, but far from deadly. The date matched my first visit. I sat on the floor and laughed. Then I cried. Then I felt sick. They had lied. About my life. About my future. About everything. I did not know why yet. But I knew this was bigger than fear now. This was about justice. I folded the paper carefully. I kept it safe. They thought the truth would stay hidden. They were wrong. I read the lab report again and again. Each time, the truth hit me harder. The numbers were clear. The notes were calm. There was no warning, no fear written anywhere. I felt foolish for trusting them so easily, but I also felt brave. I had proof now. The next morning, I returned to the clinic with the paper in my bag. My heart beat fast, but my steps were firm. I asked to speak with someone in charge. They took me into a quiet room. I placed a report on the table. For a moment, no one spoke. Their eyes moved quickly across the page. Then the excuses began. They said mistakes happened. They said I misunderstood. They said I should let it go and rest. I asked one simple question. Why did they tell me I was dying? No one answered. That silence told me more than words ever could. After that day, everything changed. Calls went unanswered. Appointments were canceled. I felt pushed out without being told to leave. I decided to see another clinic. I paid for it myself. I told them nothing about the past. I just asked for tests. The results came back clean. Healthy. Strong. I sat in my car afterward and stared at the sky. Relief washed over me, but anger followed close behind. Someone had tried to steal my peace, my time, maybe even my future. I started asking questions outside the clinic. I spoke to former workers. Some were scared. Some were angry. A few were willing to talk. I learned that others had complained before me. Files missing. Results changed. Stories twisted. This was not an accident. This was a system. At night, fear tried to return. What if they came after me? What if I was wrong about something? Then I remembered the look on their faces when I showed the report. Fear lives in the guilty too. I organized everything in folders. Dates, reports, names. I made copies and hid them in different places. One evening, a message appeared on my phone. It warned me to stop digging. It said I was safe only if I stayed quiet. My hand shook, but I did not delete it. Instead, I saved it. They were proving my case for me. I met with someone who understood law. I did not tell them everything at once. I showed them the documents slowly. Their face grew serious. They said what happened to me was not small. It was dangerous. It was criminal. Hearing that word made my stomach turn. Criminal. I had walked into that clinic for help. I walked out nearly broken. We planned carefully. Every step mattered. One mistake could erase everything. I learned patience then. Truth moves slower than lies, but it lasts longer. For the first time, I felt hope that did not come from denial. It came from strength. The day I decided to speak publicly was the hardest. Silence had protected me before. Now it felt like a cage. I shared my story with evidence. Not anger, not shouting, just facts. People listened. Others came forward. Stories poured in, each one worse than the last. The pattern was clear to everyone now. The clinic responded with denial, then with fear, then with threats. But it was too late. Truth had found its voice, and I was no longer alone. Once the story went public, my life stopped feeling normal. People stared at me in the street. Some whispered my name like it carried danger. Messages filled my phone. Some thanked me. Others warned me. A few tried to scare me into silence. I stayed calm on the outside, but inside, fear walked with me everywhere. I checked locks twice. I slept lightly. Every sound felt louder at night. The clinic released a statement saying I was confused and seeking attention. Reading it made my chest burn. They tried to turn the truth into a joke, but the proof was stronger than their words. I reminded myself why I started this. If I backed down, they would do it again. Maybe to someone weaker. Maybe to someone who would believe them fully. That thought kept me moving forward. An official investigation began soon after. Inspectors visited the clinic. Files were requested. Computers were taken. I was called to give a statement. Sitting in that room, I felt small again, but I spoke slowly and clearly. I explained every visit, every word they said, every paper they gave me. I handed over copies of everything. One inspector paused while reading the altered report. He looked up and shook his head slightly. That small reaction meant more to me than any promise. Outside the building, I took a deep breath. I had done my part. Now the truth had to do its work. Days passed without news. Silence returned, heavier than before. I wondered if the system would protect them like it always seemed to do. Then one morning, a former worker contacted me. They said they could not live with the guilt anymore. We met in a quiet place. Their hands trembled as they spoke. They explained how orders came from above, how results were changed, how fear kept everyone quiet. They gave me copies of internal messages. This was the missing piece. I thanked them and promised to protect their name. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The clinic tried one last move. They offered money, a quiet settlement, no apology, just silence. I said no. Money could not give back the nights I cried alone. It could not erase the fear they planted in my heart. When my refusal became public, support grew stronger. People shared the story again. Pressure increased. The clinic closed its doors for maintenance. Everyone knew what that really meant. Truth was closing in. I stood outside the building one final time. The sign was gone. Windows were dark. I felt no joy, only calm. I had walked in once believing lies. I walked away now carrying truth, scars, and strength. The battle was not over, but the outcome was clear. Truth had prevailed, and it was just the beginning. The investigation did not end quietly. Officials released early findings, and the news spread fast. The clinic had altered records for years, not just mine. People who once doubted me now spoke softly. Some apologized. Others avoided my eyes. I did not blame them. Lies often sound calm. Truth usually shakes things. I was asked to return for more questions. This time, I felt stronger. I no longer felt like a lone voice. Every answer I gave added weight to the case. Every document filled a gap. I saw fear in the faces of those who once controlled a room. That felt strange. One evening, I received a call from someone who worked at the bank linked to the clinic's accounts. They said unusual payments had been found. Money had moved quietly, covering silence. The pattern was clear now. I realized this fight was bigger than health results. It was about power and trust. I felt angry, but also focused. Anger alone could not finish this. Calm truth could. I wrote everything down. I stayed careful with my words. I had learned my lesson. Court dates were announced. Seeing it in writing made my hands shake. I remembered the first false report, the fear, the helpless feeling. Now, the same system that scared me was listening to me. Friends came with me to the courthouse. I did not walk alone. Inside, I spoke the truth again. Slowly, clearly. The room stayed quiet. No lies could breathe there. The defense tried to confuse things. They questioned my memory, my emotions, my strength. I stayed calm. Facts did not change because someone frowned. When evidence was shown, even the judge leaned forward. I knew then the truth was winning. Not loudly, not quickly, but surely. After the hearing, I sat outside and watched the sky change color. I felt lighter. The damage was real, but so was the healing. I had stood up even when my voice shook. That mattered, and the end was finally near. The final judgment day came faster than I expected. The courtroom was full. Some faces looked nervous. Others looked tired. I sat quietly, holding my hands together. The judge spoke slowly. Every word felt heavy. They confirmed the clinic had lied. Records were changed on purpose. Results were hidden to protect profits. I felt my chest tighten. The truth was no longer just mine. It was written into law. The ruling was clear. The clinic lost its license. Heavy fines followed. Some people were banned from medical practice forever. I did not smile. Justice was not about joy. It was about balance. Afterward, people came to thank me. Some cried. Others shared their own stories. I realized my pain had opened a door for many. That mattered more than revenge. Weeks later, my real health results were officially confirmed. I was not sick like they said. I sat alone when I read them. I laughed, then I cried. So many months of fear had been built on a lie. I promised myself something that day. I would never ignore my instincts again. Life slowly returned to normal, but I was not the same. I spoke up more. I asked questions. I listened carefully. Truth had cost me comfort, but it gave me strength. People who once doubted me now respected me. I did not need their approval anymore. I had found my voice. Looking back, I understood one thing clearly. Lies grow in silence. Truth grows when someone stands. I was afraid, but I stood anyway. And that made all the difference. The truth prevailed.